Let me tell you something. I've known Donald Trump a long time.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I think Donald Trump is what you see. He calls me names. I think what he has said has been biased and bigoted, but I don't know if Donald Trump really is a bigoted guy. He is what he is.
Why do you say that?
I don't call him a bigot. He called me and said, "Why are you saying that?" I met with him.
Yeah.
And I said, "With the Bertha stuff, the Mexican stuff is racist."
Right.
You calling me a racist? I never said you were. I've gotten out of name calling because that gives people a scapegoat out. But what you're running on, and you're getting endorsements from outright hate groups.
And how did he deal with that personally? Because you've known this guy.
I mean, if I've said
how
it
are we
before,
going to transcribe that
I'll
noise?
say it again. I've said it before. I say it again. The bombast. If the best way I could describe Donald Trump to friends is to say if Don King had been born white, he'd have been Donald Trump. Both of them are great self-promoters and great at just continuing to talk, even if you're not talking back at them.
But you want that. But that would necessitate Trump moving that hair up front.
Yeah, well, that's true. But he has a unique hairstyle. I think at the end of the day.
So Trump became. Have you made that? Have you said that to a lot of folks?
What?
Because it's a brilliant comparison. I mean, they really are.
I said it to one other reporter, but it didn't get much traction, so you can use
that. Is an incredible.
That's who they are, and the reason
and
I say that,
you actually like them both.
Don King introduced me to Donald Trump. When Donald Trump
tell me that story.
When Donald Trump began opening hotels in Atlantic City. He wanted to get, first he had to deal with the fact that much of the city council there was black.
Right.
And that he had to deal with, he wanted to get boxing in. Mike Tyson was a hot sensation.
That's right.
Don King and Tyson was working with me when I was painting crack houses, closing crack houses. Don King said, you need to make peace with Al Sharpton, because I had marched on Trump about the ads he had ran against the Central Park Five, which I ended up being right about.
Wow. That
they were not the guys that raped the Central Park rape victim. And so Donald Trump said, yeah, he's a businessman. So Don King, had me fly with him and Trump to Atlantic City in Trump's helicopter. And it was one of the most memorable things in my life to sit on a helicopter, big black Trump helicopter, with Don King and Donald Trump, both of them talking nonstop, not listening to each other. And I'm sitting there. It was probably the longest plane ride. It was a helicopter ride I ever was on.
Well, some people would say it took both of them to shut you up, right?
It took both of them to shut. I haven't been quiet since.
So what were they? Do you remember anything they were talking about?
Remember, it was like nonstop, a full blade. No, I have no idea what they were talking about, but it was self-promoting. And Trump.
But you understood the thing about Trump. So I said this before we started rolling the tape. It's like 1986. It's like the bonfire of the vanities back up again, right?
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And Trump.
I mean, but the fact that look how far you've come, look how far he's come.
It's Trump and I. 30 years later?
Yeah.
And I think that very few people have lasted in the public eye for 30 years, particularly in New York. So I understand he's got that kind of personality. There's no question about it. His politics has always been right-wing,
right?
But he's also the kind of guy that adjusts and tries to deal with whatever he has to deal with, as he says, to make a deal. There's no doubt in my mind if he wins the nomination that Trump will move to the center.
Has he given you and you have talked, was that the only time you've talked to him?
That's the only time I've talked to him since he started.
Did he give you any kind of winks and nudges on that stuff?
Oh, no, he never winks and nudges. You just know him. And he's called me names on Fox and all of that. But Donald Trump knows deep down in his heart that I believe in what I'm doing. And I know that he believes in what he's doing. He believes in Donald Trump.
That's his deepest principle.
That's his.
Do you like him, just generally?
I mean, I don't like what he's doing,
right?
But I don't dislike him. He's the kind of personality that is hard to He's entertaining. Let's put it that way.
But you understand him in a way that very few people could.
You'd have to be a New Yorker to understand.
Well, yeah.
You'd have to be a New Yorker, and Donald Trump reminds me of a lot of New York guys that owns businesses that do what they have to do to survive, and I think New Yorkers understand Trump.
Do you think when you see him up there and he's changing, you don't think he necessarily believes any of this stuff that he talks? Do you think like he has anything particularly personally against Mexicans?
I think that he has some hardcore right-wing beliefs, but I think a lot of what he verbalizes is totally just him shooting for the vote and giving glib lines. I don't think a lot of that's deep-seated, but I think his deep-seated stuff is right-wing. He is by no means a progressive. I don't think he's a phony in that regard.
Did you, just one more question about him. Did you guys, was there ever a period of time back in the 90s where you guys actually socialized together, hung out?
No, but he's come twice to National Action Network conventions. That's why when he talks about, Sharpton's car, he came to National Action Network's dinner one year. He came one year when we did the ribbon cutting.
Why? What did he say? What was his justification?
It's a big New York event. And he wanted James Brown to perform in Atlantic City, and we were honoring James Brown. He came. And I have photos of him and James Brown and I at my dinner in 2006. Donald Trump has come. Now, I don't remember if he paid for his ticket or not, but he probably told me it was in the mail. That's Donald. But
he's got a rep for that?
Well, with me. I've never remember asking him or receiving any funds for National Action Network, but he has come to our event.
One other thing, like you have talked a lot. You started off with Mahalia Jackson, right? And then you're obviously around Reverend Jackson, and James Brown was a big influence on your early style, right? And you're an orator, and you're somebody who studies a crowd and really appreciates this stuff. When you see him speak, what I'm thinking. And tell me if this wasn't your observation. I'm seeing a guy who it looks like he hung out with comedians. Like his rap seems like a very like Jackie Mason, almost Mort Saul, weird kind of.
Yeah, I learned. I started as a boy preacher, as you said, went on the road with Mahalia Jackson. So I learned from Pentecostal and Baptist preachers how to preach. I learned activism from Reverend Jackson and then Reverend Bill Jones. So I'm a guy that knows you study people to form your style, and then you innovate and becomes your own style. He had to study these comedians in New York because
am I right? Do you pick up on that too?
That's his total debate performance.
Yeah, okay.
And his speaking performance.
Right.
He's not an orator. He doesn't get up and make a speech. He doesn't inspire. He doesn't. He's not erudite where he informs.
Like Obama.
It's all thick. It's all like Jackie Mason kind of thing. It rolls off wisecrack, rolls off attack wisecrack. It's all which you see in comedy clubs around New York.
Right.
He's had to pick up that stage. He's good at it. But I can't imagine him making a presidential address. Can you imagine an inaugural address where what's he going to do? Insult every world leader, use them as his targets? I mean, he's the most non-orator that I've seen as a major candidate.
But it's amazing.
But he's glib,
right? And
he's effective.
And
he uses a total non-presidential style.
But he can also read a room in that's the thing that I found really. I've been to a couple of them. If you get a chance, by the way, I think you would get. I mean, I don't know how you would get in there. But if you had a chance to see him live, you'd see something I think pretty extraordinary.
What I think is, growing up, and you got to remember, and I think a lot of people that that view this or read the articles, Donald Trump was a Queens guy. Right. Father was a successful real estate guy, but they were Queens guys. They were out of borough that had to break in the big Manhattan
you got it.
Aristocracy.
That's such a good insight.
He was an outsider, rich but outsider. He was not part of the Manhattan elite.
So he's always feeling.
So he always had this outsider feeling.
That's a
and he always was us against them. So in many ways, when I read people talk about, well, how do you have a billionaire as a populist? He does feel like he was one of the guys that was shut out.
Sounds like somebody who I know pretty well sitting right here.
On the other side of the coin. But I was shut out because of race. He was shut out because of geography and a number of other things. The other thing is he learned how to read the room to cut his deals to get where he got. And he's reading bigger rooms now. But he learned the art of really trying to focus on who am I going to sit in front of to be able to get to my deal? And I've had to learn that too.
Because that's been the nature. So you both came up in a very unforgiving environment, right?
Unforgiving environment and a city that could easily swallow you up. Easily.
At a time when it was probably, I'd say, the 80s to me, it was the 70s people talk about. The 80s was a mean.
No, the 80s the 80s in New York was as mean as anything in the 60s anyway.
People don't know.
And people don't know that. I mean, and I was stabbed, jailed many times marching. It was a very ugly time that we dealt with. I mean, talking about outright racial murders.
There's just blood.
Polarization.
People were
everywhere.
getting killed routinely. People in the city
We
don't
didn't have videos then.
People don't realize now what 2,200 murders means. A cousin of mine was because the Jewish folks, I don't know if you know this, were the housing cops.
Right.
So there was something in what was the precinct in Brownsville, East New York? 77, 79, one of those.
77.
There was some killing, maybe the pink houses, I'm thinking, where the body was a crack killing, and the body was half in the gutter and half on the sidewalk. And if it was more on the sidewalk, it was the housing authority, the housing cops that had to deal with it. If it was in the sidewalk, the NYPD had to deal with it. So what happened was the housing cop, who I was related to, nudged it with his foot so that more of the body would be in the street so that the NYPD would take it.
Wow.
I mean, that was the kind of stuff that would happen, you know?
Literally. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the climate he and I both grew up in.